Hi, everyone. My name is San Juana Deloa, and I am an eighth grade teacher. I believe in One Houston because it has the power to create positive, lasting change in our communities and is working to achieve educational equity. I'd like to begin this evening by recognizing that we are still in the middle of a global pandemic. And every day, more and more people are having to face the dangerous realities of COVID-19. As of yesterday, over 820,000 Americans have contracted coronavirus. With one person dying every 32 seconds, I'd like to start this evening by taking a moment of silence and reflection for those who have lost their lives and those who have been impacted in every way during this crisis. This is affecting us all. As a teacher, I know firsthand how it is impacting my students, their siblings, and the schools we teach in. That is why it is so important that as a community, we understand what decisions are being made at the local level.
Good evening to all our guests tonight on Facebook Live. My name is Darren Dubose, and I teach sixth grade ELA at Kip Courage College Prep. I joined One Houston because I want to be on the right side of history, working to break down barriers and systems of oppression for students and family in the greater Houston area. We're coming to you live tonight because we're trying to help the community better understand how decisions that impact kids, schools, and families in Houston are being made during the COVID-19 crisis.
Houston is for everyone. We exist so that all Houston students experience equitable educational opportunities by advocating for the evolving needs of children. During the COVID-19 pandemic, our team has identified multiple issues that have unveiled even wider gaps in equity among students and families in the Houston area.
One Houston gathered last week to start learning about a community organizing skill called power mapping, where you begin to identify the problems that are most felt by a community, the people who make and influence decisions about the problem, and the equity-focused policies that can be utilized. We're going to continue that conversation tonight. At One Houston, we believe those who are most affected by an issue should be at the center of the solution. That's why I'm really proud to introduce you to one of my students tonight. I have the honor of introducing Dylan Scranton.
Good evening. My name is Dylan Scranton. I am 13 years old and attend Kip Courage College Prep as a 7th grader. I'm super excited to be here representing students in Houston. I joined One Houston because I feel that the greatest voice of the youth is the youth.
Thank you, Dylan. Dylan, quick question for you. Why do you think students should have a voice in decisions?
Thank you, Mr. DuBose. I think students should be involved for a few reasons. First, students need to be in these conversations because no one can fully understand the struggle of a child except a child. I believe that kids are put in the shadows of these conversations when ultimately it's about them. We give the power to the adults to make decisions for us. We need our voices heard. I will be the voice for the voiceless. I will stand up for the children who can't do it themselves. For example, at our school, I am the leader of a committee. I joined to make an enjoyable experience for all of my teammates. Secondly, students can help fill gaps for blind spots in decisions. This can be done by just having and creating spaces for students to talk about different issues and policies at school. Lastly, students are the heartbeat. We wouldn't have schools without students, so therefore, they have to be a part of decisions that will directly impact their learning, social, and emotional life at school.
Thank you, Dylan. In addition to Dylan, who I am sure will be making decisions for Houston someday, One Houston is extremely pleased to have 3 truly powerful school board leaders joining tonight to discuss their approach to leadership and to help to identify what is one of their minds as they make decisions during this time. A big welcome to HISD school board member Daniela Hernandez and Holly Maria Flynn Vilaseca, as well as Alief ISD Board member Natasha Butler. These leaders will be chatting with us later on this evening about the 3 major issues that have surfaced last week during our power mapping session.
Mr. DuBose, last week on the call, most of the people that joined talked about 3 big problems. First, kids having a hard time getting the right amount of food for them and their family. Second, kids and teachers struggling to figure out virtual learning when many people do not have a computer or internet access. Number 3, the trauma that's being caused by knowing that so many people are sick and we cannot go back to school for a while, and that we had to change our lives to make sure less people get sick. These are the 3 things we're going to talk about tonight with the school board members. Let's take a minute to meet our guests. Would each of you please introduce yourself, and maybe share one reason why you wanted to be a leader for our community?
Hi, my name is Natasha Butler, and I am super excited to be a school board trustee representing Alief ISD. It is a sub area in the Houston area, so we are in the southwest area of Houston. And I will tell you that I ran to be a school board trustee specifically because I thought of some system issues that I saw, whether it be equity in food or allocation of resources or professional development, or even how we talk about how to even service our students.
Hi, everyone. My name is Daniela Hernandez, and I am an HISD school board trustee in District 3. However, I serve all the students in HISD. I represent all students in HISD, not just the district that elected me. And one of the reasons that I decided to become a leader in HISD was because I was a student in HISD, I was a teacher and administrator in HISD, and the whole time I saw the inequities, the inequality that existed. And so I want to make sure that HISD is more equitable for all students.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Holly Maria Flynn Vilaseca. I am a Houston ISD trustee for District 6, and that's the west side of Houston and southwest side of Houston. But as Trustee Hernandez also said, we make decisions on behalf of all students in the district. One of the reasons that I decided to become a leader in this capacity is because of my own personal life story, having been a first-generation college graduate and having been on the front lines teaching in HISD and pre-K in a bilingual classroom when I came here several years ago. Back in the day, when I was a Teach for America Corps member, I was like, hey, I was the only one that was placed in pre-K, and I wasn't quite sure how I was going to see the inequity shine at that level, but true and behold, it was evident, and I'm very proud to be here on behalf of kids and to share with you a little bit more on our decision-making practices tonight.
Thank you all for joining us. I would like to pass it on to Kelly and Ashton, who will help us understand the 3 windows theory before we get on to the next issues.
Thanks, Dylan, and thank you, trustees, for joining us tonight. My name is Kelly O'Quinn, and I support struggling kindergarten through 5th grade students through small group instruction. I joined One Houston because all students deserve high-quality education, and I believe that collectively we can change systems and policies to best support them. Before we dive into conversation with the trustees, we wanted to take a minute to give some context and framing to the conversation we had last week, and the conversation we want to have tonight as well. There are different theories and frameworks that help us understand advocacy, and one that we find really helpful is the 3 windows theory. 3 windows theory is a way to strategize around advocating for change. There are 3 windows: problem, policy, and person. And we believe there's traction on advocating for change when all 3 of these windows are open. I'm going to pass it to my friend Ashton to share a little bit more about each of the 3 windows.
Thank you so much, Kelly, and thank you everybody for joining us tonight. My name is Ashton Millette, and I'm an 8th grade social studies teacher and coach at Winter Intermediate. I joined One Houston because I want to fight to make sure children receive the access to opportunities that they deserve. As Kelly said, we can create a strategy for real change once we open up all 3 windows in the 3 windows theory. The first window is the problem window. Now, this window opens up when we identify a problem that is widely recognized and deeply felt. We know a problem is widely recognized and deeply felt once we see it through things like social media, also in news headlines, or really just talking to different people. By opening up this window, we know we can get a decision maker to make this problem a true priority.
One obvious example of this is the problem we are continuing to discuss together tonight, COVID-19. It's definitely being widely and deeply felt, and it's being talked about by the media, on social media, and in casual conversations.
And then we have the second window. That second window is called the policy window. This window opens up once we identify a possible solution to the problem that we're feeling, which would then be called the policy. In the policy window, we also think about who may be for or against the policy or solution that we actually come up with.
One way we see this playing out right now is with food access for students who are not physically in school to receive food. As you've probably seen, and as we've discussed together last week, there have been a lot of decisions made about food distribution sites and what people need to bring with them or who needs to be present to receive food. These decisions are not made arbitrarily. Policies and government regulations determine what districts and schools are allowed to do or not do.
And then we have our third window. And then that third window is called the person window. In this window, we identify the person or the people who hold the power to solve the problem that we are working on. We learn about their roles and their responsibilities and how they can help us. This window opens up once we identify who the people in power are and what their interests and influences may be. And this is what we've been working on last week, this week, and going forward. #PowerMap.
Exactly, Ashton. So with this window, we'd think about who has authority over policy decisions and how we influence them. In keeping with the same example, would we need to talk to the Secretary of the U.S. Department of Agriculture or someone more local like state legislators or district nutrition departments? This framework allows us to do exactly that. Ensure all three windows are open, then conduct a power analysis or power map to make those decisions, then execute our personal and collective power to advocate for and create meaningful change. I also wanted to note that the three windows can be explored in any order when conducting a power analysis. We grounded ourselves in the three windows theory last week because it's a framework that can help us understand systems level leadership and change. And we hope you keep this theory in mind over the course of the evening and future conversations. With that, I want to pass it to Catherine and David to further explore the first issue we heard come up in last week's conversation.
Thank you, Kelly. Hey everyone, my name is Catherine Etienne and I teach 4th grade in Spring Branch ISD. I joined One Houston because I believe a lot more can be done to ensure that all students are getting a quality education, one that they deserve, and I'm super excited to be working with a group that works in stride with the community in order to accomplish that.
And hi everyone, I'm David Lopez. I'm a school administrator at Yes Prep Northbrook High School. And I joined Houston because classroom teachers, I believe, have the largest impact on students' lives. And making sure that everyone's voices are heard is essential for progress in Houston schools. So like Kelly mentioned, food access for students has been on the forefront of everyone's minds, or was and is on the minds of families and communities across the city. So we're gonna spend about 15 minutes to have a conversation about food access in y'all's districts. So Trustee Butler, when you think about decisions around food distribution during this time, what does a school district have to consider?
Hi, so one of the things that I think a school district has to consider is which communities actually need the food the most, one. Two, how are the students or parents going to have access to the food, right? And three, is the food nutritional? Those are the three things that I look at as a school board trustee making decisions, well, as it relates to food access.
Thank you. So I hear like prioritizing specific groups of people and how to distribute that food. What do you personally think about as you see the plans from your district for food distribution?
So far we've actually gone and changed the food sites. So we picked a few schools at first We tried it there. We didn't get the numbers that we thought we wanted to see. And then I started hearing conversations from parents who said, well, I can't get there because I'm a single mom, I'm pregnant, I've got 2 small kids. How do I get food, right? Right, so how would you service my needs? So one of the things that I started doing was asking as a district, representative is, so how can I get food to them? And one of the things that I asked our nutrition department was, so can I pick up more than 1 bag? So then I can take 4 or 5 bags and drop them off to families. And so I went and reached out personally to a group of friends and said, hey, can each one of us pick up 5 or 6 bags and drop them off to those kinds of pregnant moms or those young teens, that we know that physically can't get there. And then we looked at that as well for like our elderly and even our disabled students. How do they get service? So for me personally, it is more about making sure that every kid has food, but not even just every student, but that every person has access to food. So I'm really happy about our district, not just feeding just our students, but feeding anyone that shows up to the door can get a meal. And so it's breakfast and lunch, same bag, and we feed you between 9 and 11, and it's at 5 or 6 different sites. But it's really easy to get in. We've been even giving out like some Doritos. So Frito-Lay has donated some Doritos. We've gotten the food bank now to give us some boxes, so you're not just getting just your 1 meal, for that day, but now here's something extra to take home. So I'm really excited about what our district is doing.
Thank you, Trustee Butler.
Trustee Butler. Trustee Hernandez. Last weekend, HISD, in partnership with the Houston Food Bank at NRG Stadium, gave out 90,000 pounds of food to 3,000 families, and there were still thousands more in line that were unable to receive support. So this is incredible, both the need for food in our community and the system that was set up by the district. Other districts across Houston are also doing similar things. When you think about the process and structure, what does this mean for Houston families? Your microphone is.
I think that this has taught us a lot and has taught our families a lot that, schools are not just there for education. Schools are there for other types of resources as well. And this crisis has taught us that one of those big resources is food, and that society knows that well now, right? So how can we make sure that we are a resource not only for food, but wraparound services in general as well, because we know that schools are not just there for education.
Thank you. So what does this mean for you?
The food distribution?
Yeah, it's like the whole situation with food distribution. And yeah.
I think definitely in terms of HISD, I believe that we should be looking into how we are providing our wraparound services in general, right? We know that we have been trying to increase the number of wraparound services during the regular school year, during regular times. But this means, how do we make sure that we increase and make sure that we are reaching every student that is in need, right? Making sure that we're gathering that data to begin with, to make sure that we know who we should be reaching out to and how the best way to reach out to them is, right? Because like Trustee Butler said, not every family, not every situation is going to be, every person is going to be able to go and, be in line at NRG for hours on end. So how do we reach those students that and those families that are not able to do that?
Thank you. So during all of this, who did you collaborate with? Like, who's the team working on this?
So HISD is collaborating with the Houston Food Bank, and I'm sure that NRG collaborated with HISD as well. The administration is the one that works most, does the what or the how. They're the ones that do the how, so they are the ones putting it all together.
Okay, thank you. And so what is the policy around food distribution?
The policy that I know of for food distribution is to be as safe as possible, right? Making sure that all the staff that's working has the proper PPE and is taking the proper social distancing measures available. I know HISD is working with the food bank with that to make sure that everything is the way that that the CDC is recommending for now, and that we're getting the food to students. I know one of the things that Trustee Butler also mentioned was that they are donating some food boxes from the food bank. HISD decided to partner with the food bank because that way we are able to distribute food to families in general, and not specifically only to students in the district. And so we are giving out boxes of food or bags of food so that families are able to go home and cook their meals, and not necessarily have a pre-cooked meal for them. And hopefully that brings them together at home and they have a little bit more flexibility in what they are able to eat. We also have an emergency constraint around food, which we are hoping to pass, I believe, this coming Monday. The constraint, we are, if it passes, then it will, the district will continue food distribution until August 1st. I believe that's the date, if not August 31st. Can you, do you know what the date is, Trustee Vilaseca?
It's either, there are some constraints that are June 1st, and there are some that are through the summer and August. I believe the food distribution would be through the August timeline.
Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, that may have like answered already this question, but in addition to the constraint, is there anything else you would want families to know, like related to this problem?
I feel like I would want families to know that we are with them, that we are going to do everything in our power to make sure that not only students are fed, but that families are able to have food as well, because we know feeding the child doesn't, it's like the whole, what we keep on hearing, with the airplane, if you put the mask on the child first, then you need to take care of yourself first. So we want to make sure that all families are taken care of.
Thank you, Trustee Hernandez.
Trustee Vilaseca, we just like Trustee Hernandez mentioned, Trustee Hernandez mentioned wraparound services. What would we need, in your opinion, to make sure wraparound services can be expanded and protected?
Absolutely. So one of the things that the board had before this crisis came to be, the pandemic came to be, was an emphasis on wraparound service, providing wraparound services across the entire district. By 2021, every single school in HISD should have a wraparound service specialist, right? So that's something that was in the works as ahead of time. What we need to do is make sure that this is exacerbated. So anybody, and from my understanding too, anybody that is there is an all hands on deck approach to reaching out to our kids first of all, right? But identifying really what their needs are and helping expand the wraparound service specialist opportunities to more schools right now. We do have to get a check on that, and that is something that's going to be part of our updated constraints as well. I mean, it's really, really important that we're able to help families get what they need, provide the supports that they need, and mobilize so that they can continue to get nutrition on the table and SEL support so that they can remain healthy. And then obviously we need to address the technical divide, which I think we're going to talk about momentarily.
Great, thank you. And to confirm, if Trustee Vilaseca can answer this one, and then Trustee Butler for your district, after the school year is over, I think you already mentioned this for HISD, but will the meal distributions continue into the summer?
Yes, I believe so. We're going back, and we will push, at least question that of the administration when we have this conversation on Monday, right? I think it's really important. There's so much food insecurity before the pandemic, and now that the pandemic is here and the unemployment rates are continuing to increase on the daily, like we really need to make sure that we monitor it, because there is some additional funding coming in through the federal government and CARES that can that will help us to continue to provide and address things such as the nutrition piece, technology, and other things to make sure that our kids, when they do return to school, and who knows, it may be still in this redefined kind of fashion, but that they're able to get the supports necessary to make up for some of this, some of the lost time face-to-face.
Hi,
Thank
and
you.
Alief, yes, we're looking at the same situations as HISD. We're looking at the federal funding, the CARES Act, as well as some of our other business partners. We partner with Citgo and Shell and some of the big oil and gas companies. And so obviously, like right now, they're having their own issues, given the economy. So we are really, trying to see how we can pay for that in our budget. Is it going to come from local funds? Can we get some private donations? So all of that is still up in the air, but I know that our district, just like HISD, that we've continuously made sure that our students and our families have meals, whether it be partnering with the city of Houston through summer meals programs or just with other private partnerships. So I know I can speak very well that I'm confident that we'll make sure that kids still get fed, whether it be school year or in the summer.
All right. Thank you all so much for this conversation on food access. We'll now introduce Kate and Manoj to talk about the current technology need in Houston.
Thank you. Thanks so much. And thanks again for being here and having this conversation with us. My name is Manoj Koshik, and I teach 1st through 8th grade STEM. I joined One Houston because I believe in the power of people, especially when we act together. It's really important that we take action. Right now is a great time, and for our students who need it the most. Having conversations with you is part of that process.
Hey everyone, my name is Kate Gibson, and I'm a kindergarten teacher in Fort Bend ISD. I joined One Houston because I really believe in the power of the conversations that we're having and the people that we're bringing together to create positive change for our education system here in Houston. And again, thank you all for being here with us. We really appreciate it. So last week we talked to a variety of people about technology issues, and some of the issues that they said they were experiencing were related to access to devices, access to Wi-Fi, and the speed and effectiveness of those devices and Wi-Fi. So a lot of concerns have impacted students' ability to complete their assignments and to continue their learning during the school closures. Right. So Trustee Vilaseca, this question starts for you. Governor Abbott announced that schools would be closed through the school year. As schools move to online learning, school districts are scrambling to fill the tech gaps across districts. So what's HISD doing to close that gap?
Yeah, as we know right now, the inequities that we knew existed before have been exacerbated and are really in our face, and our students are faced with incredible challenges in being able to continue on with a normal day-to-day activity. And I think it's our job to continue to push and ask, really, what are we doing to increase access to broadband and devices across the district? We previously, before COVID-19, the district had a Power Up initiative where secondary students, high school students had access and have access to laptops, right? And so that we know that there is not as much of a gap as far as device access is concerned at high school, but the majority of our students are elementary students and middle school students in the district. And so, we're happy that the high schoolers are able to transition a little bit more seamlessly with the device access, but still many students don't have unlimited data on their phones to tag into a hotspot so that they can actually access some of the different the hub opportunities and different learning modalities online, right? And so that is a problem. We know that, with the CARES funding, with us right now, we're reviewing our budgetary priorities. We have a workshop on it on Monday. It's an opportune moment to ask more about what's next. We do know that the administration has communicated to us that devices are going into the hands first of our special population students, our special needs students, along with our English language learners as well. So at our last meeting, there was a discussion of, I think it was 5,000 hotspots were on the order to be distributed to staff who hadn't had, because this is a staff issue as well. There's some teachers that don't have access to internet that's really continuous, right? So we can't forget to address the needs of those that are on the front lines delivering pedagogy to our students during this time of transition.
Thank you. And Trustee Hernandez, you can chime in for HISD as well, if you like.
Yeah, I believe what Trustee Vilaseca is, what she said is correct. We are providing special ed students first priority. Once we receive more laptops and that, or hotspots once they come in, and we're hopefully going to have them in soon. The next population that's going to get them is the ELLs. Every campus has a different method for distributing laptops. So I know that principals are supposed to follow those recommendations on how and who to hand out the laptops to.
Thank you. And Trustee Butler, what about Alief ISD? How's it going for you? You're on mute.
All right, perfect. So for us, we're kind of having the same conversation that HISD is having. Let's look at our budgets, how we're going to be able to fund this, this issue as it progresses, because we have students who are doing their classes online. But one thing that we're doing in our district is we ask parents, like at the beginning of March, do you have access to the internet, and do you have a device for every student to be able to use that lives in your household? So whether that's one device or 5 devices, right? And then we realized that we had a bunch of students and parents who did not. So we developed with some paper packets, and parents went and picked those up from the schools. So in case you didn't have a device, we could still continue that learning that is supposed to happen. So that's how we've kind of will address the problem to start with. But we are looking at budgeting and how to buy technology, and then how to increase it, and then which kids do we want to give it out first. Some of the things that we noticed was our special needs kids, can they even use the device? So maybe we shouldn't just try to give them a device initially, but to reach out to their parents and say, hey, would your kid be able to use this? Because the kid who's got, who might be like learning disabled, being autistic, he may not have the same problems as a student who can't see or touch or feel, doesn't have arm access. So we need to be, real careful and being real strategic about how we give out those devices.
Right. Thank you. I guess I'm curious. We're all educators. We're all organizers as well. We want to know how to plug in to this really dynamic issue, right, with technology access. So where are there opportunities where community input can be valued? Where does that fit into this issue? Anyone can go for that.
Well, there is an opportunity even in this virtual kind of environment that we are in today to be able to speak and reach out to trustees either individually or at a board meeting that's posted, for instance. So there are opportunities at every single posted meeting. By law, we have to allow for the public to be able to provide input. And so I would encourage you to join us at our workshop. That's a publicly posted meeting. We have one on Monday. And it's to talk about the constraints that Trustee Hernandez mentioned earlier today, that we have our emergency constraints, so that there's more of a narrow focus for Dr. Lathan, the superintendent, to be able to really focus on the health, safety, and the ongoing learning of our students, right? Those are the 3 priority areas. And so that would be an opportunity to talk about it there. And then also we're having a budget workshop. So bringing this topic to light, again, it's important. We're not going to be taking any action on the budget, but to hear folks from the community that are really, really concerned and have experienced this firsthand, also students, to tell the story about, like, look, I'm here, I'm ready to engage, but I can't, and this is why, and we need your help, right? And I know that we have hotlines in place to address tech concerns, to address some of the questions that parents might have on homework or on access to food and nutrition. And there are some different things that HISD is doing during this time as far as outreach is concerned, but still that lag time in between of actually getting the tech or getting the broadband, into the hands of our students as they're trying to make their way right now during this time.
I think also a little bit more broadly, there's lots of money that the federal government is giving out. And so as a community, how do we reach out to other elected officials in order to tell them, like, hey, education needs money, right? All of our students are being affected right now because of what's going on. We have some students that don't have technology, that are home, and they are not able to access the internet and learn in the same way that some more privileged students are able to learn. So how do we reaching out to elected officials saying, hey, maybe, some of those monies should be going to, public Wi-Fi, or, more money to school districts so that their budgets are not as tight because they're buying thousands of Chromebooks or whatever it is, technology.
Hi, so for me, I think personally that we need to start leveraging our community partners. So whether that's your local grocery store, whether that is a Shell or an Exxon or whoever that may have space that's, in their office building that they're not using, I reached out to some of the people that I know and said, hey, can y'all donate some of that equipment that's just sitting in the office because your employees are working from home? And if that's what you're going to be doing, then can we get some of those devices? So that being one option, I've talked to some people who are retired, who have like their children's old laptops that are at home, who are away in college and we have some at home. Hey, can you please donate those to our district? So really, I see more of us being a community from the ground up, trying to go and supply some of our needs instead of waiting on the government to be able to give it to us, just because I see the lag time between trying to order them, get the funding for, 6 to 8 months, it could be that long. Whereas we have people who are in our neighborhoods who actually do have devices who are at home. For myself, I've got 5 devices in my house, so I gave away 2. It's just me and 2 children here, so I had 2 of the devices. I gave them away and said, hey, there's another family that needs them. So, trying to ask each one of us to take care of our neighbor. So that's kind of my approach to it.
Awesome, thank you so much. So for this next question, we'll start with you, Trustee Butler, as well. So now that public schools have moved to online learning, do you think that Wi-Fi should be considered a public utility? And if so, what would our community need to do to make that happen?
So I think public Wi-Fi should actually be a utility as if it is anything else. I think we are in 2020 and it's time that we start acting like we're in 2020. We're still trying to solve education problems like we did 100 years ago, and that's just not what the world looks like now. So when I talk to Centerpoint and when I talk to, TXU and Reliant, I reach out to them regularly and asking, hey, so what kind of technology, what could you give as the communities? Whether it be that you go and install extra, a platform somewhere else so that kids can drive up and use those, or whether I reach out to Walmart, who's got free Wi-Fi. So all of our Walmarts, I've asked them to turn on their Wi-Fi access so our kids can sit in their parking lots and do their homework. I've asked HEB, the same question. So some of those business partners that we have said, hey, can you just turn on your Wi-Fi? Yes, I hear it. It's for your customers, but we're your customers too. So we still shop in your stores, and our kids still need access. So please partnership with us to be able to solve, these real world problems that we have. So that's really where I'm looking at that from, is to be able to reach out and say, hey, look, yeah, there's a need in this time that we just solve the problem now instead of waiting 3 years or 5 years. And so I've talked to our legislators and said, hey, why can't we put this in the next Senate bill, the next House bill in 2 years? We shouldn't have to wait 4 or 5 years to get this done. Especially here in Texas, right? So we are a big state. Houston, we're the 4th largest city in the city, in the country. We can solve that problem. It is not that complicated. We can solve it. It's just a matter of, do we want to?
Awesome, thank you. Trustee Hernandez or Vilaseca? would you like to chime in on that as well?
Yeah, I think this is an opportunity for the school district to have a collaborative conversation with the city of Houston, along with possibly Harris County as well, to talk about really what are we doing as a community to make, broadband a public utility. What can we do to get some of these different things? I mean, like you can put vertical assets up. You have telephone poles around the entire city, entire county. You can use that as a way to actually deploy Wi-Fi and make it accessible to every corner of the county. We just have to have the conversation and start thinking innovatively.
I agree. I think that Houston started the conversation about public Wi-Fi a while ago, maybe like 10, 15 years ago from what I remember. And I think it somehow got lost in, everyday things that everyone else was doing, and has brought it back up to the forefront because everyone needs it now. There is not one person in Houston that is just able to go without internet. So I think that would be a good solution.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having this critical conversation with us. And we'll now pass it along to Josephine and Jared to talk about trauma resources.
Okay, hey y'all, my name is Josephine and I am a third grade math and science teacher in HISD. And I joined One Houston really because I'm invested in the process of building coalition and organizing, and because I believe in the power of advocating for our city's youth, especially.
And I'm Jared Braun, and I teach fifth grade in SBISD. I joined One Houston to help make positive changes to the school system. I believe this happens by allowing the people most affected by a problem having a greater voice in solving that problem. I wanted to help in giving voice to those communities so we can have meaningful resolution to the problems we see in the education system today.
Yeah, so we know Houston to be a resilient city. Still, access to trauma support resources is an issue that greatly impacts the way that our city is able to move forward and heal following a traumatic event such as COVID-19. So I guess, really just trying to think about how we can use those trauma support resources to support families now and following this entire thing that is COVID-19.
So, trustees, this isn't the first crisis that Houston has endured. As Josephine said, we're a very resilient city. The question I have would be, what can we do to become more proactive about how we handle these situations, and especially around the supports that we put in place for traumatic events like this? We can start with Trustee Hernandez or Vilaseca, if you want to start from the HISD perspective.
So I think that access to counselors every day is something that's essential, right? Making sure that our students have the skills, the coping mechanisms to deal with crises like this doesn't just start during a crisis. It starts way before. And so having counselors available at schools on an everyday basis and a regular basis for our students, and that being something that is taught is something very important, I believe, so that if it's this crisis or a hurricane or whatever it may be, students are able to better cope with that because they already have those skills. They've been taught those skills beforehand. I think there was a second part to your question that I don't remember.
Oh, I think just being more proactive about the services that we provide, even when we are in an event like this, or in a hurricane, or in any other kind of major event that we might be seeing.
I know that HISD had a form that a parent could fill out if their child was in need of counseling services. So I believe that the counselors that were already at schools are doing the work with the students that they were partnering with before. And if there has been any other needs from a school that didn't partner or didn't hire a counselor or a social worker at that particular campus, then some of the other counselors that we had on staff are trying to fill that need. And I know that there's also some other outside organizations, some nonprofits that are helping as well.
Trustee Vilaseca, do you have anything that you wanted to add?
Well, I think it's really, really important that our students do have the opportunity to engage with a counselor. They might not recognize that they need to have somebody to talk to, so I think it's important that the counselors are able to reach out to them and have those conversations, engage really where they're at. I also want to point out, though, that a lot of trauma, at least we know with Hurricane Harvey, a lot of that, the PTSD doesn't come until like 6 months later. So when we do come back, we need to make sure that we are really doubling down on the counseling services that we're providing to our students.
And then Trustee Butler, do you have anything that you wanted to add to that, or move the conversation in a certain direction?
So I think specifically when it comes to being proactive, one of the best ways to being proactive is to actually go back and take a needs assessment as to see what have we already done, right? So what were some of the things that we ran into for these barriers right now? And so let's put those programs, into place. So one of the things that our district is actually doing that I really did what I really do love about it is that we've actually said, hey, all of our counselors who were already at camp, who were giving services to kids, whether it be CIS or our own counselors, please reach out to these kids, like that first week in March, before we knew that we were going to be closing schools, right? See what their needs look like. Go back and look at your caseloads. And then next month, at the beginning of April, they were calling kids and saying, hey, do you have food? Do you have clothes? Do you have lights? Do you have water? What do those needs will look like? And then we talk to them about, health, making sure that they're healthy, right? Because being at home, school isn't always the best place for our students, right? Some of our students come from some very troubled homes. So is it really safe for them to be at home versus school, right? And so how do we actually make sure that we have those needs? And then fourth thing I'm really glad our district is doing is that we have a virtual parent classes. So we've got virtual parent classes. Our parents are still learning, online and learning about their own mental health, how to help their students, how to help their kids at home, how to make sure that, they're giving them those extra resources, spending that extra time with them, doing some anger management, helping to deal with the ADHD that builds up of just being cooped up in your house, right? Those fear things. So I think we need to make sure that we're giving those kinds of resources.
Thank you.
So, it sounds like in both HISD and Alief, that access to counselors and mental health supports have already been considered, and that in many ways they're already being implemented by schools. So I'm just wondering, in the same way that nutrition services ensures that entire families have access to food, is access to counselors being guaranteed in the same way to families, or do you know if it's like specifically catered to student access to trauma supports? Trustee Vilaseca, anyone can start, but is counseling mental health supports available to entire families, or is it geared just towards students at particular schools?
That's a very good question. I'm not sure if Trustee Hernandez has anything. I'm not sure. I would hope so, but I'm not quite sure if that if addressed. Even though I would agree and I would support that if a family is in need of some services, that the whole family, their needs are addressed rather than just the student, right, on its own. But I'm not sure where that stands.
So the emergency constraint around social and emotional needs does provide webinars, and I believe that the wording around that is on families that log in and not necessarily students. I'm reading it right now.
And what was that you just referenced? What document?
The emergency constraints. So we are having a meeting about the emergency constraints and passing them on Monday. So one of them is around food, one of them is around social and emotional learning, and the third one is around education and having our students learning. And this is on the HISD website. It should be, right, for Monday's meeting. But I believe that the wording around that is about families logging in, at least for the webinars that provide social and emotional learning or support.
Yeah, so for us in Alief, well, it is the whole family. So I'm a parent. I've got 2 kids in our school, so I can log in as a parent, or I can have each one of my kids log in, or we can log in collectively as a family and all take the same one webinar training or that same parent seminar together as a family. That is one thing that that I really am always thankful for, is that we don't just solve just the child, that we know that the child is a microcosm of that whole entire household. So we may be trying to address that child's needs specifically, but those other social issues that are happening in the household are going to affect that family. So if that child is being stressed out or trying to figure out, like, hey, my mom and dad can't pay rent, but I need to go get this second job or this third job, right? So how do we address all of that? So as a district, ours is definitely for our whole entire families and not just the student itself.
So we're going to go ahead and just ask one last question, just like a quick response. Is there anything that is available that maybe isn't being advertised at the moment, or maybe people are not as aware of? Like you had mentioned the counseling service document where the counselors should be reaching out possibly to families that might need it. Is there something that can support their social and emotional needs outside of school right now that maybe we just don't know about and you wanted to just say?
Off the top of my head, what I can think about is I know that wraparound specialists are still working, and they are the ones that have access to or know more, have a lot more knowledge around the nonprofits that provide the social and emotional skills and resources for students. So if there's a student who needs it or a family who needs this type of support, I would say reach out to your wraparound specialist. And if you don't have one, there's other wraparound specialists available. You can definitely call the HISD hotline that is available, and they can put you in touch with the wraparound specialist that is that has that individual knowledge for your area, for nonprofits that are close to where students live.
And then Trustee Butler, is there anything that you wanted to add with services that might be going underutilized at the moment for emotional and social and emotional services? So
I would say to definitely reach out to like Mental Health for America. They've got some great resources, whether it be for students, for families. It's in all kinds of different languages that they can help you out with. I would say them, who will definitely, like communities and schools, can definitely go and refer you, whether you're a signed up person for it or not. You can reach out to them right now. They're basically servicing any kid and any family that has any issues right now.
Awesome. Thank you, trustees. I'm going to pass this off to Manoj and Destiny to close it out for us.
Awesome. Thank you, Josephine and Jared, for leading that. To end our session, I just have a final closing question. And it's pretty large, but I'm really curious to hear, what is your greatest hope at this very moment? What is your greatest hope at this very moment? Trustee Butler, you can start, followed by Trustee Vilaseca, and then Trustee Hernandez.
So for me, my greatest hope is that even in the midst of this crisis, that our families and our students, they're surviving, and that they're at least being able to even maintain at this moment. And my greatest hope is that, yes, when we go back to schools, that our students, a traditional learning, that our students and our families are ready to truly will not be that whole year and a year and a half behind, just because I know that, like in the summertime, we talk about summer slide, but this is a really, well, 6 months almost of being out of school potentially, in that traditional learning. So that is my greatest hope, that our students are still reading, they're still being engaged, and that they're just maintaining, if not trying to grow. I will be appreciative and hopeful of that.
Thank you.
My greatest hope is that our students are going to be able to come back. Well, hopefully, look, I just want to make sure that we're, as leaders, we're focused on these priorities right now, that we're making tough decisions, and that we're going to set up to be more resilient because of this. I know that each and every day our students are using their daily life skills to be able to be stronger, to make it through, right? Like our community is a resilient community. And I know that we're going to come back out of this stronger, but we need to be prepared, because there's going to be some supports that need to be in place. We need to be strategic. We need to make some decisions on the budget. This is in the middle of a budget, and we need to be able to be prepared to fight for more, because public education has been taking a hit in the state for several years, for decades now, right? And local governments are also going to be fighting for different stimulus money that's coming in. Some of the stimulus money is being routed through the state first, and the governor gets to keep 10% of it. That's what's stipulated in the CARES Act, right? And so even with that 10% that's left over, how is it going to be used, right? And to be able to follow the money and to question. And then again, just to make sure that we're planning strategically, asking the tough questions, and doing our due diligence to make sure our kids are going to be fully supported now and afterwards as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
For me, my greatest hope is that, there's a lot of untraditional learning happening right now at homes, a lot of practical learning, life skills, a lot of cultural learning going on. And my greatest hope is that those skills are valued when school starts again. We know that we're going to be going to school again at some point, and the skills that students are learning right now may not be the traditional skills that they would have learned, but I'm hoping that when school starts again, those skills are valued.
Hi, everybody. My name is Destiny Chantel Woodbury, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Anchor School. I joined One Houston because in order for change to truly happen, we as a Houston community must have clarity and alignment on what equity means for our city, so we can hold each other accountable. We must reject the one-size-fits-all solution, because it benefits adults and not our kids. This has been a really informative evening. We'd like to thank our guests, trustees Natasha Butler of Alief ISD, Danny Hernandez, and Holly Maria Flynn Vilaseca of HISD. We wish you each all the best in your service, and hope that you continue to stay strong during this really, really hard time. We need equity-focused leaders like you, and the One Houston community is here to help ensure equity stays at the front of the agenda. And we thank you also to those who joined us on Facebook Live tonight. We're going to continue our power mapping sessions so that we can better understand the decisions that are being made related to education in Houston during COVID-19. Remember to follow One Houston on Facebook for updates, and check out our emails for our next event coming up. We'll like to close out with a little chant we like to do. So we make sure you come off of mute. And when I say go, we will say one city, one power, one Houston. All right? One city, one power, one Houston. All right, go. One
city,
one
power,
one
Houston.
Let's do that one more time. One
city,
one
power,
one Houston.
Wait, one more time.
one city,
one power,
one
Houston. Thank you all.
Let's go.
And good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank y'all so much.